what was it like for you growing up? Because there can't be a million, Destins running around also doing this, or were there? Did you have like a group of friends where you would do these experiments together? Like, how did you develop this interest in just learning deeply about everything, but not only that, but communicating it with others?
I don't know. Well, my father used to play this game with me growing up called Do You Know? And we would be driving somewhere. This was before cell phones. This was before anything. It's, you may have had a decent song on the radio, but when we would drive somewhere, he would say, do you know? And he would say something, for example, do you know that people in New York are spinning around the earth slower than we are here? He would say that, for example. And that would just open up this box of wonder. Like, what? Mm-hmm. We're all on the same earth. I'm looking at my feet. My feet aren't moving. We're obviously moving the same speed. He's like, no, it's not. And he would explain the distance, and, he would explain latitude and how all that worked. And we eventually got to Coriolis. And so Dad would just ask questions. And I don't know if that made me ask questions, but Mom told me the other day for the first time when I was in school, they pulled me out of a certain school. I was going to go to this high school where all my friends were going. And they pulled me out in 8th grade, that transition from 8th to 9th grade. You know how that works. You're right about to be in high school, so everything matters socially. They just pulled me straight out. And I was like, I bloomed late. So I was this little guy that, got put into a brand new school, had no friends. And I asked her the other day, I was like, Mom, why did you do that? You made life hard for me when you did that. And she's like, yeah, I just knew that, academics were, it's always been clear academically that's important to you. And I know you're not going to, work at a plant like your father and I do. We know that we had to give you the best education possible. And so for, the income that our family made, they sent me to a different public school that had better academics, and I made some friends, and we did Science Olympiad. You ever heard of that?
Yeah, no, I was a captain in high school.
Oh yeah. What events did you do?
Back in the day, I liked Mission Possible. That was my favorite.
Okay, so
yeah.
Alabama, Steve-O and I were Alabama state champs in Mission Possible. Did you do Mission Possible?
Yeah, no, I was only a regional medalist in that, though. But, however, I was responsible for a rule change. And I'm prouder of this than almost anything in my life, where one year I used timed cannon fuse. And this was back in, the 90s.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was back in the 90s where you could still just order that from a catalog and have cannon fuse show up in the mailbox, And so, yeah, I built the Mission Possible thing, and I actually made 2 of them because I was in middle school, and the high school team, nobody bothered, and they didn't make an entry. So I'm like, yeah, I can do 2 of these in tandem because it's fairly easy and depends on this timed cannon fuse system. And so I shipped it to them, and they advanced to the States because that got 3rd place. I was like, all you have to do is light this thing. And, it burned the 2 minutes or something right on the button because, again, all I had to do was cut it to a certain length and do things along the way. But no, anyway, sorry.
What's the rule change?
So this timed cannon fuse is hot burning stuff. And it burned through the bottom of the box and torched the gym floor of whatever school the thing was, burned through the lacquer and everything. Oh,
put too much lacquer on it.
Yeah, it went really badly. I wasn't there because, I was doing the middle school one. But yeah, there were a lot of changes with things like pyrotechnics.
They banned.
Yeah, the next year, New York State Olympiad, they didn't allow things like cannon fuse.
Attaboy.
Yeah. So
attaboy.
I wasn't the state champion, but I was. I forced a rule change.
But that was as a junior high student. So you did that as a junior high student.
Yeah, because it was the only idea I could come up with to reliably hit a 2-minute thing.
Yeah, that was the year that you had to start the event and you could have all these parallel paths. And the goal was to do something at the exact second, right?
If I remember, and again, this is 20 some years now, right?
Kevin, I'm sorry. You're going to have to give us this time. This is important to us.
Please continue.
So if I remember, it was a 2-minute ideal time, right? And there were 3 ping pong balls that were colored like blue, red, and green or something. And I think the idea was at 60 seconds, the blue one has to release. At 90 seconds, green, something like that. And then they had to fall into something in the opposite order that they were released.
That's awesome.
Yeah. So the best way to do that was to use put balloons on timed cannon fuse so that it would
And burn the gym down.
And evidently, yes. But yeah, no.
The way we did that is it was a little different thing, but timing was important. So we had a motor spinning a piece of all thread, and we had we machined a piece of aluminum with a nut on it, and so it would slide around that all thread at a certain rate because we were running the motor with a voltage regulator.
Okay.
And so that's how we did the same thing. But yeah, I know what kind of person you are now, and I feel like yeah, this helps. Got it. So Matt is the man. Mission Possible extraordinaire. Okay.
I did get a state medal in metric mastery.
Ooh,
yeah,
that's awesome.
That was my actual area of expertise was metric estimation.
That's fantastic.
So, yeah.
That's awesome.
Did you do more beyond Mission Possible? Did you do?
I did.
Yeah.
I did a lot. I did. I actually did the rockets as well. That was that's what that one's actually hanging on the wall in there, and that's a pretty big deal. So I went across. I didn't even know what the word engineer was at the time, and I went across the street. There's this guy named Mr. Lieberg. And he was in a wheelchair. He was an engineer at Boeing, and I knew he flew he flew planes for the Air Force. And I said, Mr. Lieberg, I need a parachute to pop out of this rocket at a certain time, and I have no idea how to do it. And he said, oh, well, you need to use what's called a pilot chute. That's what the big boys use. And he talked me through what a pilot chute was. It's a smaller parachute to pull out a bigger parachute, and told me how it worked and what to do. And he taught me what the word engineer was. And then, 2 years later, I'm like, I think I want to be an engineer. I don't really know what it is, but I think that's what I want to do. So, I mean, Mission Impossible and bottle rocket stuff, that changed my life. I really enjoyed it. So it's a big deal.
Yeah, it was.
Have
What's up?
You should go back and judge it. Have you judged it?
No, I haven't. No, I've kind of been out of the loop on like school involvement and things like that. But yeah, I could probably weasel my way into the regionals. To judge that at least. It would be so cool to see what the new events are. Like, I haven't kept up with it extremely well, so I imagine there are some events now that are probably a lot more advanced than what we did.
They're probably beyond us, man. They're probably like, program this weasel with this chip in the back of its brain.
I remember events like Road Scholar, which was basically, navigation and simple map stuff like Boy Scouts did and things like that. And like, that was cool, but how could you have an event like Road Scholar in 2018?
Yeah.
And make it compelling?
That's an excellent point.
Yeah.
Well, you don't need it when you can control a weasel with a microchip in its brain.
Yeah, you just follow the weasel.